As you guys would be aware, 1 in 5 Australians live with a disability, and for many people, these conditions can be largely invisible to others. This includes the 1 in 5 young Australians that live with mental health conditions, approximately 3 million people living with chronic pain, and 3.6 million people with hearing loss, as well as many other conditions. Invisible disability is an umbrella term that can capture a really wide range and a spectrum of different disabilities. And because they're invisible or hard to detect, it can come with its own additional challenges. People can often be accused of being fake or not have their needs taken seriously. It can be difficult to secure a diagnosis, and also have an impact on people with a disability and or their families in terms of trying to access services. Supporting people with any type of disability to share their story with the Disability Royal Commission is a core objective of our service. And unless the Royal Commission has the opportunity to hear from the disability community, they're unable to make fully informed recommendations that can result in our society being more inclusive and more accessible, and also improving the quality of services across a range of different areas, which leads us on to our second theme, how to champion nothing about us without us, and the power and positive impact of speaking out in relation to the Disability Royal Commission. So it's my pleasure now to introduce our guest speakers. They are all hugely impressive people, so this is really just a glimpse of their achievements and experience, because I think we want as much time as possible to hear what they've got to say. So Tammy McGowan. Tammy is an experienced coordinator and trainer with a 14-year history working in the community services sector with a focus on disability advocacy, social inclusion, and trauma-informed and person-centred practice. Tammy's worked within the education department and also in the alternative care, disability and homelessness sector. Tammy's a person living with autism and has recently also been diagnosed with ADHD. She's also a mother and has also raised 2 children living with autism. Tammy's a member of our advisory group representing South Australia and provides considerable expertise to our service about how we can deliver more trauma-informed services to our clients. And it's very exciting today. She's in South Australia with our Your Story lawyer, Carla, so it's really nice for some people to have been able to get together with this event. We also have Brianna Bell, who's worked in a range of roles with UN Youth Australia, including as CEO, before becoming the UQ Union Disability Officer. She's passionate about using her legal education, lived experience of disability, and experience in accessing the NDIS and DSP to advocate for the rights of disabled people. Brianna is a wheelchair user and assistance dog handler, and also lives with chronic fatigue. Brianna represents Queensland on our advisory group, sharing her expertise with us on how her service can better reach young people with a disability. And we welcome Brianna from our Brisbane office as well. Margarita Coppolino, and I'm not sure where Margarita is, but I hope you can see her camera and her fantastic setup, is an influential disability and inclusion consultant who specialises in inclusion and intersectionality. She's held several chair and company director positions on not-for-profit organisations since 2013, including the president of the Council for the National Ethnic Disability Alliance. Through her work with government, business and social justice organisations, she lives by the philosophy inclusion is key and works to empower people to take action to improve the quality of their life as well as the lives of others. She represents Victoria, and I know there's a cheer from Jake for that, on our advisory group, and shares with us her expertise on how we can better reach the LGBTIQ disability community. Finally, Selena Brown. Selena is a Derrbulung, Bunda and Yarrabah woman. Selena is an Aboriginal health practitioner working with the Worley Wollongong Health Service in Katherine, NT. Along with her personal experiences as a person with a hearing impairment and as a person who's made a submission to the Royal Commission, She's also seen firsthand the disadvantages and social detriments affecting those with disabilities, as well as First Nation peoples in remote communities. As the NT representative for our advisory group, she shares also her considerable experience and expertise in how we can better serve First Nations people with a disability. And before handing over to Jake, I'd just like to acknowledge the lived experience and the expertise of our panel guests, but also many of the guests at this event today, and also recognise the important work that you and your organisations do in this area. And it's fantastic. We have a turnout from every state and territory and a real range of organisations as well. And I'd like to hand over to our panel host, Jake, our partner at Your Story, and also the National Coordinator of the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Legal Services.
Thank you so much, Susanna. And just checking, can everyone hear me? Excellent. Okay, so I'd like to invite our first speaker, Tammy. Are you on the line there, Tammy? Hello, Tammy. Welcome. Happy International Day of People with Disability. So, Tammy, I'd like to invite you to talk to us about what it's like to live with an invisible disability like autism and ADHD. In particular, the difficulty with existing stereotypes and the burden being on the person with the disability to educate others.
Thank you, Jake. Can everyone hear me okay? Excellent. So I am autistic and have ADHD, mental health and chronic physical conditions. I am a representative of entire lost generations of people who were misdiagnosed and unseen because we did not fit with existing stereotypes about our neurodivergence. We have carried the dual burden of having to prove our differences and educate most people that we choose to disclose to. Because my brain and my body don't cooperate with stereotypes, I have a fluctuating presentation. On any given day, I might be able to engage with people, or I might be on the floor in a crying heap. Many autistics and others are damaged by that stigma that is associated with our disability. People think they understand autism based on social media representation and older movies, and they treat us differently as soon as they find out that we're autistic. We are assigned functioning levels, and people either expect too much or too little of us based on how our behaviour and communication impacts on them. For those of us that have fought our way through the diagnostic process, there is no pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. We find limited supports, especially for adults, and a world that is hesitant to accommodate us. Every day we have to self-advocate to have our basic needs met. We want to engage meaningfully in all decisions made about us. We want a seat at every decision-making table. We need more support to tell our stories and to educate people about what it's like to live with our neurodiversity. We need people to know that every single one of us are individuals. We are not homogenous. We represent all cultures, all abilities. We have all disabilities, and we are in all age groups. We need to be provided with the technological resources and physical accommodations so that we can communicate in whatever form that we individually need. And it is my hope that we can take lessons learned from this year with COVID in 2020 and continue to explore flexible work, education and meeting arrangements like this, and continue to push for disadvantaged Australians to be provided with access and opportunities to have control over our own lives. I understand that many people in our community do not feel safe to be completely themselves. Many of us have a history of personal trauma directly linked to us being authentic and not being accepted for who we really are. Many of us have had our difficulties discounted or minimised, and we have missed significant opportunities to thrive because we didn't understand what was expected of us or what we needed to do or how to engage to make that positive thing happen for us. We need information aimed at all individuals, particularly at the moment about how we fit into the Disability Royal Commission. We need to know if sharing our own experiences of trauma, neglect and abuse will be valued and if our experiences are significant enough to share. We also need reassurance that we won't experience more pain by revisiting trauma and that we'll be accommodated and receive personalised support through that entire submission process. I want to thank you all for giving me an opportunity to participate in this forum today. American civil rights activist Marian Wright Edelman said, "You can't be what you can't see." I want everyone to see all of us with disability represented in all of life's arenas. And I also want people to know that if I can do this, we can all do this in whatever way we communicate. Thank you.
Can we all take ourselves off mute and give Tammy a Thank you so much, Tammy. That was really powerful, and we stand with you on this day and every day. Our next panelist, Brianna. Can I invite Brianna to come forward? Do we have Brianna on the line?
You, Brianna?
Yeah, I think it's.
Is that okay? Is that working?
All hear me?
Rach, mute.
Hi, Brianna. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. So,
Sorry, it's working on our echo.
Yeah.
Queensland laptops open up to speakers. Is that correct?
It is muted. Kelly.
Okay, Brianna, can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to just ask people in the room if they've got a second laptop open with another speaker, with another microphone on.
Yeah, I think it's the. Oh,
Okay. All right.
that
Yeah.
works. I think we might have fixed it now.
Brianna, thank you so much for joining us today. So I'd like to invite you to talk about some of the challenges you face with visible and invisible disabilities, which is one of the topics of our panel discussion today, and perhaps highlighting some key differences and similarities between the two.
Okay, hi everyone. This is a bit of a weird experience, but yeah, I guess I'll give you a bit of background about me and then hopefully we can get to the panel as soon as possible. So I have a mixture of visible and invisible disabilities. Don't know where to look, but I was diagnosed with my first disability, which was an auditory processing disorder when I was about 8 years old. And the professionals who diagnosed me told my parents not to tell me and not to tell my teachers because I was coping fine and I'd experienced too much discrimination. I'm only 25 now, so that I think is a good mark of how recently this is happening and the fact that it probably still is happening to people. Obviously, also, I have some physical disabilities as well. I got my first disability accommodations for them when I was about 15 because I got a lot sicker and no one really knew what was going on. And that was mostly just thrown in the deep end, learning how to argue for what I needed for myself. And not really understanding why things were so hard. Then by the time I was 21, I learnt for the first time that it wasn't normal for everyone to be in pain when they walked, because no one really talks about divergences of body experiences. It's not a fun topic of conversation always, but it's not a common topic of conversation. We don't see a lot of different bodies on TV or in movies or in our schools or in our workplaces. So I didn't have a model for what was acceptable to be experiencing and what was something that I was allowed to be struggling with and to ask for help with. So after that, I started to use a wheelchair, and that was hugely liberating for me. It's definitely not something that I'd ever identify with wheelchair bound, because for me, getting a wheelchair meant going from being basically housebound, often bedbound, to being able to go out and do things for myself, be with my friends again, all those sorts of things. So that's been really exciting, but it did also bring with it my first experience of being visibly disabled in public. Up until then, I had only experienced invisible disability, and there were things about the way I presented in public that if you knew enough and if you were watching carefully, you could probably guess that I was disabled. But in a young person, you don't tend to read those sorts of cues as disability. You tend to read them as being lazy or not being very smart or being obnoxious or those sorts of things. So that was a bit of a shock to my system to start not experiencing disability discrimination just as things that were hurting me or accommodations that I wasn't receiving, but starting to receive people coming up to me and telling me quite hurtful things. I know the ABC's disability correspondent earlier this week wrote an article about how she was on the train and someone told her that if he was her, he'd kill himself. And I've had exactly the same experience. I wasn't on a train, I was in an IKEA. And it's confronting. But I think most visibly disabled people have had an experience like that. And every time we talk about it, mostly everyone is shocked. They're outraged, they support us, but it's listening to us all the rest of the time when it's small things that are building up to those big comments that I think makes the biggest difference. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most excited about with Your Stories work, is that you guys are trying to get the message out there that every story is worth taking to the Royal Commission, especially for young people. That's so important, knowing that their school or their university or their TAFE not giving them those little accommodations that they need in order to be on a level playing field with their peers. That is enough to submit to the Royal Commission. That's exactly what the Royal Commission should be hearing. It's not only these really big, catastrophic, inflammatory issues, it's every little barrier along the way. But I think that's me, and I'll leave the rest of the panel.
Can you talk that one up for me?
So much, Brianna. I might invite everyone to give Brianna just a quick round of applause for sharing the story. Okay, so Margarita, are you there? Can I invite Margarita to come forwards?
I can't unmute myself.
There you are. I think you need, have you got a camera? I can hear you, but I can't see you. Are you there, Margarita? Bear with us, everyone. We've got technical problems.
Somebody keeps putting my mute on. I unmute and then it comes.
Okay, I can definitely hear you now, and I can see you as well. Fantastic. Okay. Margarita, thank you so much for joining us, and happy International Day of People with Disability.
Ditto.
Can I get you to start by sharing what it means to be a part of the LGBTI community? I'll get you to talk about Nothing About Us Without Us and the role of co-design and how that works.
Yeah, look, so let's first of all talk about the LGBTIQA plus disability community. I've just got to make it clear to people that, I think over the past we're pretty much invisible, particularly not only in the LGBTI community, but also in the disability community. So, but there's been some amazing shift around that, whereas particularly in the last 5 years, we've become much more visible. And I think that's because both sectors are now including LGBTIQ in the work they're doing. And part of that was because in 2018, the United Nations CRPD committee ratified a CRPD General Comment number 7, which meant that state parties who signed up to the CRPD had to consult and include LGBTIQ people with disabilities in their work. So that was really a quite a significant shift. There are now networks being built up, being led by LGBTIQ people with disabilities, not only here but internationally. The UN are now starting had 2 LGBTIQ side events as part of the convention of the state party. Now, let's talk about co-design. I think part of why there's an increasing network and visibility is because LGBTIQ people with disabilities have been involved in the co-design of public policy, products, programs on things that impact them, not only here but for the rest of the world. Next year, you'll probably see even more where there are now international organisations that are doing some amazing advocacy work by putting people with disabilities to identify at the forefront, not getting disability organisations or LGBT organisations to talk on their behalf. And I just want to say one more thing, if I may. In the Disability Royal Commission interim report that was released just recently, you may have noticed that there were 3 cohort groups that the Royal Commission, Disability Royal Commission, said they have yet to do work on. 1, First Nation; 2, people from poor communities; and 3, LGBTIQA. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the Disability Royal Commission does to consult and co-design some public hearings in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Margarita. There's a follow-up question here. So I understand you made a submission to the DRC a while ago. We just want to ask any ideas of how your story can encourage the disability community to come forward with recommendations to make society safer and more inclusive. Did you do that? Did you hear me? Sorry, can everyone hear me? Oh, are we having technical difficulties? Yeah. Is it right that you made a submission to the Royal Commission, Margarita?
Yep, yes, I did. Yes, yes. Talk about the submission?
Yeah, is that okay? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. But before I do, I think there's something I need to highlight that Only 3 people with disabilities from coal communities in the last 12 months have made a submission to the Disability Royal Commission. I'm one of them. I know the other person, but I don't know the third person. So only 3 people from coal communities. That's a worrying term. So that's one thing I just want to say statistically. The second thing is that the reason why I wrote a submission was because of my experience of going through getting my first ever NDIS plan. There were a couple of things in that. I won't talk about the actual contents of the complaint or the submission, but I'll talk about how I went online and did the submission. And but so, people, they've got to do it online, and then there's a whole heap of things that are raised on the website that you just type in. Now I'm 60 this year, well, turned 60. So I'm spending a bit of time catching up with technology. So I'm not that computer literate. So my frustration, I think I've got grey hairs with just some of the processes of technology. So I think the highlight that it would have been great to have somebody that I could talk through, help do that submission in a much more inclusive way. And yeah, I think it's important to mention that submissions are done in very different ways, and it's not always in written form. Now, I also have dyslexia, so what I found that I'll be writing something and about, well, that doesn't look right and that doesn't read right. How will the legal team at the Disability Royal Commission read what I've written?
We can absolutely support people to share their story, whether it's in written form. That's absolutely where we come in. So, yeah. Margarita, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today, and also for all of your advocacy for LGBTI disability and core communities with disability as well, for giving people a platform and a voice, and giving visibility to those important groups of people. Thank you very much. Do we have Selena on the line? I'll invite Selena to come forwards.
Hi.
Hey, Selena.
Hello. I can hear you, Jack.
Happy International Day of People with Disability.
Happy International Day for People with Disability.
So, Selena, can you tell us about what it's meant for you to share your story with the Disability Royal Commission, about your experiences because of your hearing loss?
Yeah. So just a bit of background. So I used to be a Bachelor of Nursing student at a very respected university, and on my third last placement, got pulled off placement at a hospital and got told by my lecturer that I couldn't continue my bachelor's degree in nursing because I was too deaf, or my hearing impairment was too severe for me to continue my Bachelor of Nursing, and that it would be unlikely for me to ever complete my bachelor's degree in nursing because of my hearing impairment. So that was told to me by the university and the lecturer themselves. And as you can imagine, after that point, I just sunk into a very deep depression. I developed anxiety and that really sense of loathing and worthlessness and all that sort of fun stuff that happens when you get anxiety and depression. And beginning, I think I don't know when, Mark's on there, he probably know when he contacted me, but Mark Munich, a lawyer friend of mine, he was around that time, because we were both on a program called the ORP program. So we used to live together, and he was there when it happened back in 2016. And he approached me about telling my story to the Royal Commission. And I mean, it's been 4 years, and I thought to myself, oh, do I really want to sort of go down that route again? You know, I'm only just starting to get the help that I needed. I was just starting to, you know, sort of move on from the fact that I may never be able to finish my bachelor's degree. But then Mark was like, no, if you come on board, you know, you tell your story to the Royal Commission, we can, I mean, we're hoping that, you know, by gathering all these stories, maybe something will change. And then it got me thinking, if by telling my story, I could prevent what happened to me happen to another person with a hearing disability. What happened to me is, you know, being told you can't be a nurse, especially by a respected university. I don't want that to happen to someone else, irregardless of disability. Everybody should have the chance to, you know, to go to a university and be safe and be respected and have the chance to study what they want to study, instead of being told that they can't study that because of whatever reason. And I think that's why I said, okay, yeah, I want to do that, because by sharing my story, I get to sort of say goodbye to that part and sort of move on and heal as time goes on. And then I think Mark set me up with a lawyer in Darwin, and you know, we got together. I think she's on here somewhere, Sarah. Hi. And yeah, we just, by telling my story and being part of the Royal Commission and being part of the Your Story Advisory Group, I'm getting that sort of, well, it's slowly happening, but I'm slowly rebuilding back the confidence that I had before I got told I couldn't be a nurse. You know, I think the more time goes passes on, the more I do the stuff for Your Story, or the more I talk about it, my story and what happened to me, the more my brain thinks, oh, okay, you're healing. And instead of keeping it all bottled up inside and lashing out on other people, I'm bringing it out and I'm telling the world that, hey, this is what happened to me, but I'm dealing with it. And this is how I'm dealing with it. So by Mark ringing me up and say, hey, do you want to be part of this? That was sort of the start of my healing journey. And yeah, so if it wasn't for Mark, I probably wouldn't be on this panel, and I probably wouldn't be on the advisory group. So I wouldn't have even known about this if it wasn't for Mark Munich. So thank you, Mark. Yeah. But I just, by telling the story, and I guess also, like I said, I don't want what happened to me to happen to someone else. So the more that, you know, issues with disabilities, like people with, say, issues that people with disabilities face, the more that it's raised and the more people know about it, then maybe the better chance that in the future that, you know, people will have a better chance of getting things done and not going through what I read through. Yes.
Thank you so much, Selena, and we're so proud and thankful that you're a part of our service and you bring so much. So we really appreciate it. And also that you're using your platform to speak out for others who may not have a voice. I think that will contribute to the change. So we thank you very much. So I think we're great. Fiona and Susanna, are we going to open up to a panel discussion?
Sorry. Yeah, I think that would be good. I don't know if people want to put their hand up and unmute themselves to ask questions or write it in the chat. Whatever you think, Jake, or what people prefer.
Yeah, I think
that would be great.
I think we might get people to put their hand up and ask questions of our panelists. So we've got Margarita, Tammy, Brianna, and Selena. I'll invite people in the audience to ask questions. I might ask the first one just to kick things off. So Brianna, are you there? I've got a question for you.
Yep.
Hey, so you mentioned like people with disabilities being visible and having that as a model that you can sort of model yourself on.
Sorry, can I get you to start again from the start of the question?
So when you were speaking to us, you mentioned like how the lack of having people with disabilities in the media and on TV and things like that, as you couldn't model yourself on those things. Is that something that you could speak to?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, when I conceptualize invisible disability, I sort of split it into two categories. One of disabilities that are largely invisible to the public gaze, and a second sort of circle in the Venn diagram of disabilities that are invisible to the medical gaze. There's a lot of overlap there, but they're I think it's important to differentiate. But I think you're mostly asking about things that are invisible to the public gaze. To me, it's just so important that we do speak more. That's part of why I started speaking more openly about my disability. Part of it was that my health deteriorated sufficiently that I didn't really, there was no benefit to me anymore of hiding that I was disabled, because I wasn't going to be able to avoid employment discrimination or discrimination at university, or like discrimination at the grocery store, by just saying that everything was okay. I was going to gain much more by engaging with the online community and advocating for myself. And I think people do that in lots of different ways. I get a lot of success because, aside from my wheelchair and my assistance dog, I look like what's quite acceptable to society. I'm from a middle-class background. I'm white. I speak as though I've had substantial education. I'm more likely to get good results if I smile sweetly and play along and quietly advocate for myself. But there's also other people who are just not going to have that same experience as me. Brings to mind the Stella Young quote that no amount of smiling at a set of stairs is ever going to make it turn into a ramp. There's different types of advocacy that we need. But for me, growing up, what I missed most was seeing any adults around me who have to be in bed 16 hours in a day, still living full, fulfilling lives, that it wasn't, a moral failing to have any of those disabilities or those medical conditions, and that you could still have good quality of life. And to me, if I'd known that I didn't have to push myself to fill what I thought was a functional member of society sort of role, I honestly think that I wouldn't be as functionally impaired now as I am if I hadn't pushed myself that hard, falling into that narrative of, oh, just push yourself, like, be an inspiration, see the ability, not the disability. Like, no, seeing the disability is really important, and you erase a huge part of our experience if you erase our disability.
Thanks so much. I love that you mentioned Stella Young. She was just amazing. I think we've got a question from Fiona and Susanna for the panel.
I'm just trying to unmute.
Yeah, you're on mute there, but there you
go. We'll type it maybe. Oh, we're off mute. Sorry.
It's the challenge of so many people online. I think the system's just a lot slower, so unmuting and muting is an extra challenge today. But I think overall we've done pretty well. It's a pretty good turnout. I've got a couple of things I wanted to say. Look, I guess, Tammy, can I just start with you? One thing I was going to say or comment on is, and it's a topic that I've heard a bit about today too, because I went to another panel discussion. I found your opening address very powerful. I think the comment you made about not being a homogenous group is, in the area of autism in itself, is an important point. But I think one of the biggest challenges it faces, either invisible or visible disabilities, it's a community that is definitely not homogenous, and I think that's a really important point. That's really just a point I wanted to make, and then recognising that and understanding that actually I think is a key to delivering a more inclusive service. You know, so because you start off with, just because there's a diagnosis or a label or whatever it is, it's just one piece of information. Really, you're dealing with individuals. That's something I would take away from that point. I think the other thing I wanted to say, because it was so powerful, this is a statement, and it's being recorded, I just want to remind everyone too, whoever's listening, I know some of the professionals are joining us today. Tammy, you could even think about using that as a submission for the Royal Commission, just as a thought, because it can be video, just a thought on that. So I don't know if you've thought about writing up your own submission, or if you have given a submission yet to the Disability Royal Commission, but it's just something to keep in mind. And if you do want to, you can always chat to us offline, because we can also see what we could use for the video. And the last thing I just wanted to do, look, I was going to say, this is just from a kind of curiosity perspective, and anyone can answer this on the panel, but I guess more from the perspective of having an invisible disability. It is difficult to know when someone does live with an invisible disability. That's one of the challenges, right? You don't know. And then I guess my question is and I feel like I have my own invisible disability as well, but if you suspect it with someone that you're working with or that you're supporting as a client, I'd really appreciate understanding how to navigate that conversation. Do you approach it? What's a respectful thing to do? Or do you just let them tell you? Like, what should you do? Or is it, yeah. Go ahead, Tammy.
My answer to that, Fiona, would be that people use a universal approach. If we presume that everyone that is in our lives may have something going on that we don't know about or are not aware of, and we just open up the conversation, if we're noticing someone appears to be having difficulty with something, with simply, I noticed today this, is there anything I can do to support you? Is there a different way that we could have had that conversation? Was there something about meeting that was difficult that we could change? For example, my psychologist noticed that I wasn't taking off my sunglasses, and so she said, can I turn the lights off for you? And it was this wonderful moment of understanding and feeling seen. And now every time I see her, she turns the lights off automatically, and so I don't have to worry about that sensory input. And so sometimes we are not able to advocate for ourselves and to ask for things for a myriad of reasons, including that we don't want to be treated differently, or we're managing our own ableism, or we're just feeling at that moment too vulnerable. So my advice would be to reach out, and as I said, you have to presume that everyone that you are working with, when we talk about 1 in 5 Australians, could have something happening with their physical, mental health, or with disability.
I think it's a great point, and just wondering if anyone else wants to comment from the panel on that.
Can I add something? So I completely agree with everything just said, but I'd also add that it's worth remembering that a lot of people with invisible disabilities won't identify with the term disabled. They won't feel disabled enough, or there's a lot of things that perhaps a government definition of disability would include, but as an individual identity, is not considered to be a disability. It's just a different human experience. So not everyone has to be comfortable with that word. I personally love it. I find person first language a bit exhausting. I prefer to be a disabled person than a person with a disability, but that's not going to be right for everyone. And there's lots of communities that that's not going to be right for. So I think what's worth doing, especially in a work context, is normalizing accommodations, not saying your accommodation has to be tied to a disability that you have to prove to us before we'll put anything in place. Noticing that a colleague always misses your first call and being like, oh, okay, maybe I'll sit down and have a chat with this colleague and say, would you prefer that I email you rather than call you? It's not always going to be possible, but most people will really appreciate that gesture. There's a lot of people who would never call themselves disabled who hate phone calls. And we can make the world a lot friendlier for disabled people by making those small changes normal. The other thing I'd say, no, I've lost it, which is a good moment, isn't it? But yeah, I really do think that normalizing, just asking, hey, you look like you're struggling, can I grab you a chair? You know, maybe they're just a bit hot and a bit sweaty and sitting down will be a relief. Maybe they have serious chronic pain that they don't feel comfortable telling you about, and sitting down is going to mean that they can actually get to the end of the workday instead of having to go home sick. Or when they get to the end of the workday, they're not going to have to call in sick tomorrow, the day after, all of that because they've been trying to push through. It's making those accommodations normal and easy and not a big deal that is really going to make probably the biggest difference for people with invisible disabilities.
Selena, you got your hand up there. Do you want to jump in?
I agree with what Brianna and Tammy are saying, but I'll say don't be afraid to ask. If you are unsure about your employee who may or may not have a disability or an invisible disability, don't be afraid to say, hey, what's up? I'll give you a personal example. So with my anxiety, like I said, I get feelings of not being worth it. I'm not good enough to do this job. I'm not good enough to do this or that or whatever. So my boss, Trevor, is very, very understanding when it comes to not just my hearing disability, but my anxiety as well. So when he knows I'm having a bad day, he thinks I'm having a bad day, he'll say, hey, are you okay? Or he'll say, hey, what's going on with you today? And sometimes he'll just randomly come into my consult room when I've got no clients and say, right, let's have a chat. But don't be afraid to ask your employees, or don't be afraid to ask people that you work with that's got an invisible disability, are they okay? And most of the time, just asking that simple question, like it may be different for everyone. Like some people may not want to disclose what disabilities, or some people might not want to say what's going on, but just asking that simple question of saying, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? It's just as simple as that, or even sending an email, or, just don't be confronting, but just be aware that, so don't be afraid to ask, hey, you okay? And especially with people with, like for me, not many people know that I'm hearing impaired until I say, hey, because I don't speak like what a hearing impaired person would normally speak. And it's same with the anxiety. I keep it hidden. But people, when I start to get agitated, that's when they know that I'm getting very anxious. But from my perspective, just don't be afraid to ask, because if you can sit down and have a talk with us or talk with anybody with an invisible disability, then you might find them opening up and saying, yeah, well, I said, well, not. They may say, yes, I'm okay, or may say, no, I'm not okay. Can we have a chat? Yes.
Margarita, I might invite you to jump in here, and then we'll go to Tammy.
Unmute. Would somebody unmute me, please?
We can hear you. So you're on mute now, but unmute yourself again and then you'll be fine.
You there?
Yeah.
Okay. The unmute button. I tell you, it's been the week of unmute yourself. Okay. Just a couple of things I particularly would like to raise, given that some of the work that I've done in inclusion and intersectionality, particularly in the workplace. I think the key word is disclosure, but it's about how you encourage people to disclose. The importance of disclosure. If they disclose the information, what are the benefits of disclosure? So that's, organisations can do, a lot of communications around employee disclose blah, we're able to do a much more greater reasonable adjustment, etc., etc. But it also has to come from the top. But being in the legal setting, the word disclosure in the legal term is actually interpreted quite differently. So I just want to raise this because as people in the legal service, jargon is understood very differently to how we all interpret words. So the standardising of data, I come into a legal service, all of a sudden the words I understood a completely different interpretation of what they use in the legal setting. So I just want to raise that because I think that's really important. And the last thing I want to say is some of the hearings, particularly the NDIS appeal hearings, are very jargon. It's kind of like it takes the person with a disability out of the process, and then there's just conversations between legal people, and we're just sitting there going, well, what's going on? Now, if that happens in the NDIS appeal process, does that also happen in some of the hearings around the Disability Law Commission? I'm just putting that out there. If you're doing representation work alongside with your consumer who happens to have a disability of some type, find a way to empower the consumer to actually have a voice in that process.
Thanks, Margarita. I'll hand over to Tammy for the last word and then we'll wrap things up.
Thank you. Just following on from what Margarita was saying, I think it's important that people understand that they are taking responsibility for someone's safety. If that person makes themselves vulnerable and shares with you that they are experiencing something in the workplace in particular, but also if they are sharing in a personal capacity, that the way that you respond to that information can be traumatizing for that person, and that you have a responsibility to think about what you will do with that information, including keeping that private if that is what the person wants. Until organisations guarantee our safety by providing us with access and inclusion planning, and, for example, a young autistic woman that I'm very close to disclosed she was autistic and then also disclosed she had mental health issues, and then was told privately by her manager that she will be transferred to a different workplace because of her mental health issues. And that was an unrecorded conversation, and this person is young and vulnerable and feels they have no power in the situation. So, as Margarita said, disclosure is risky for many of us as well. So do ask if someone needs something, but also think about how you're going to respond to what they say and the ramifications for them if you're not keeping them safe.
Thank you so much, Tammy. And we're just on time, everyone. So can we all thank our panelists, Tammy, Margarita, Selena, and Brianna? I'll take a separate motion. Happy International Day of People with a Disability, everyone. And I want to say a special thank you to Fiona McLean for bringing us all together today. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. I'm gonna try. Yeah.
Hold on,
Well
I think I can probably do this too. Hold on. You can put more people in.
They've all got their cameras. No. I think it's just a little bit anyway, is it? Especially readers.
Why don't we do this?
Very good.
Oh, they've gone. Okay.
That's nice.
Quite slow, isn't it? I don't think I'd sent that comment before. Cool. Well done.
You did great.
So did